I missed some skin reviews in 2024, so let's wrap them up before the year is out. Let's talk about Victoria's Tryndamere and Sona, and World's Viego. And we'll start with Viego. World's skins are, of course, first and foremost commemorative, like souvenirs that you buy on a holiday, and their main purpose is to remind you of an occasion, and whether or not they are strictly good is kind of a secondary concern. And that's a good thing, too, because World's 2024 Viego really isn't that great. Or, well, the splash art is pretty good, actually. The artist is clearly playing very deliberately with color, keeping most of the image grayscale to make the gold and the blue really pop, and this isn't a bad way to use Viego's pale and undead base color scheme for the purpose. Viego's costuming is a little bit incoherent, but it works in a carefully posed splash art where it can look eccentric rather than just, messy. Not so much on the model, though, unfortunately, where Viego's sullen emo boy posture does a substantially worse job of flattering the costume. Here, the lopsided fur collar interacts awkwardly with his hunchback posing, the frilly cravat and complicated jacket design just turns into visual noise, and while the grayscale with saturated colors worked in the splash art, on the in-game model, the colors are so turned down and everything below Viego's waist is so gray and desaturated that the contrast is basically non-existent. The crown, which itself looks a little bit silly just perched on top of his head like a toy like it is, almost vanishes now into his yellow blonde hair because, of course, if they'd made the hair pure white like it is in the splash art, then the hair would have vanished into the fur and the collar and his pure white face. This skin just kind of looks drab and a little bit depressive, and that's not quite the vibe that you would want for something that's meant to celebrate the biggest esports event of the year. Moving on, the Victoria skins are similar to the World skin in that these are also commemorative, proof positive that their owner was winning games in Season 14. And honestly, I think they're really well pitched for that purpose. There is something quite classy, at least to me, in the understated color scheme that's working here. Sona, for example, is mostly clad in dark brown and almost black, and her instrument is rendered in this dull but quite ornate and shapely brass. It's fancy without being loud, and that is complemented by a fairly dark purple color tone for the hair, which gives room for the almost iridescent streamers on the feather structures on her dress to act as a bright, beautiful highlight. Ditto, for the most part, Tryndamere, whose costuming is decidedly rustic, heavy leather and fur as befits a barbarian king, but never shabby. It's all high quality and it looks like craftsmanship. His hair is, yes, a little bit wild, but it's also styled back and cut in layers and has a beautifully structured braid running through it, complementing that well-groomed facial hair. And finally, the blade, which appropriately should be the showy part of a Tryndamere design, gets to have a bright purple color and a bright gradient to grab attention. I do wish he had a few more battle scars to really imply a long history of fighting and winning hard battles, but there is a sense of kingly dignity in the design here that I really like. Both of these skins are fancy in their way, but never gaudy. They show off, but they aren't trying too hard. They're not exciting, but I find them refreshing in that restraint. It would have been easy to slather them in gold and crystal and shiny gems, but I like this approach a lot better.